Okay. We should be live. I am going to wait. Need to add a pinned comment. How are we all though? Hope everyone's doing well. I am I suppose while I grab this playlist link, what have I been up to last night? So I had an appointment yesterday, which meant that I couldn't stream. Let me just series playlist in that. Cool. Good to go. So yeah, yesterday I had an appointment, which meant I couldn't stream, which meant I couldn't do a VOD, but we prepared a recording for YouTube for that. I believe we did the KBD recording? I think it was. But yeah, in the meantime, since then, what I actually did yesterday after my appointments, I ended up training up my summoning. Actually, before that, I was mostly training my magic and defense, as well as prayer, wherever it's right there. I've been just farming the green dragons with some portents of whatever the hell they are. Jack's been making a bunch of portents with divination, so I've been taking like 5 of those with me, 4 in the inventory, 1 equipped. Then I've been going to the wilderness crater, and I've been using the portents to bank the green D-hide. I've been burying the bones, which I know is probably going to make a lot of people cringe, but I don't know a good way to do prayer in this without the Chaos Altar, and Ectofunctus can suck my nuts. And other than that, we need like the construction level to do the house altars. So I've just been burying them, and even then I don't really mind if it's not efficient XP for the prayer, because my main goal has actually been to get the defense and magic up. So I've mostly been aiming to just prolong the trips of having to just stay at those, at the wilderness crater for as long as possible. Is this ready yet? No. I'll just stand there while I'm talking. So yeah, we've been doing that. And yeah, so that's been banking the D-hide and burying the bones. I've been elking the salvage. I still don't know what salvage does, but I'm there for the XP. The reason I want 70 mage, 70 defense, so I can start doing barrows. I'm currently in Mystic, which appears to be, I think it was tier 50 armor for magic. The next armor I want, I'm going to skip whatever tier 60 is. Obviously, I guess it's lunar equipment. I should do that anyway, but... Wait, no, we want defense, don't we? I'm going to skip 60 and go straight for 70, which would be Aram's. So I'm going to get Aram's armor. I'm probably going to go to 67 defense at the dragons and then start farming barrows. So that way, hopefully by the time I get the full Aram set, or at least the armor, no, probably a full set. I probably do want the staff. Oh, no, maybe not. We'll see. Yeah, hopefully by the time I get that, I'll be 70 defense just from being at Barrows and killing the Barrows brothers. I doubt it, but that's fine. If we need to do a little bit more training elsewhere afterwards, that's all good. I did my herb lore up again. I finally went through and used a bunch of my herbs. I am almost at my goal. I want to get 54 for qualms and 55 for super strengths. God damn it, everything grew. Then next I did summoning. I used up a ton of charms. I got a bunch of charms from the dragons. Stackable. Pretty good. So I did a bunch of this. I think my main goal would be... I mean, Macaws are good just because it's Guams, and I'm getting the green charms from the dragons. But my ultimate goal is definitely, I think it's 68 for Bunyip. I want the Bunyip. War Tortoise would be nice too. I believe that's a Beast of Burden from memory. Yeah, so we just got some levels in that, used up a bunch of supplies, and I think that's pretty much it. My mining, I got up a bunch, but that was because I was doing the granite crabs for summoning. So, wasn't deliberately doing the mining, but ended up getting the XP just over time from it. Now, that being said, what are we doing today? We're going to attempt the dig site. I don't know if I'm going to struggle on this or not. I don't remember if there's anything particularly challenging that I have to remember. But it is a long quest, and it is easy for me to get stuck at like the small things, right? So, first letter up there. Wait, why am I doing that? I did the archaeology thing, remember? I have that teleport. Let's go get that. That way we don't have to, because I'll be using that throughout the quest, I guess. Wait, do you start at the dig site or do you start in Varrock? I don't quite remember. Also, I got this. I don't know what the fuck it is. It just says upgrade Fremenic equipment. Which Fremenic equipment? I don't know. For the keen-eyed, you might have seen a spoiler then as well. I don't know how big of a spoiler it is, but that'll be in the recording. What did I say? Archaeology journal, right? It's this? This has the teleport, I think. Teleport. Bingo! Put that in the pocket. Oh, the other goal with the qualms is getting... If I get one more farming level, I made a bunch of the... what are they called? The compost monster things. And they have a boost. It's +1, +2%. So for me, it's giving +2 at the moment. I also just made a bunch anyway. Wrong thing. I made a bunch anyway because they were just really easy to make. Compost, green charm. Simple. So I made a bunch of those. And I'm actually going to use some because if I get to 54, I can boost to start planting the... What are they called? The qualm seeds. Because I got like 300 and something of them. And that'll be my herb sort of quite a while. Before this stream today, I did a bunch of picking up limpworts to use in my Taramin potions, but it'll work just as well with the making super strengths when I get to it. Who am I talking to? Am I talking to just to examiners? Hello. Hello there. I am the resident lecturer on antiques and artifacts. I also set the Earth Sciences exam. Earth Sciences? That's right, dear. The world of Gillinor holds many wonders beneath its surface. Students come to me to take the exams, so they may join in on the archaeological dig going on just north of here. So if they don't pass the exams, they can't dig at all. Joke's on you. I've already got archaeology levels. That's right, you're full of shit. We have to make sure that students know enough to be able to dig safely and not damage the artifacts. Fair. Alright, can I take the exam? You can, if you manage, if you get this letter stamped by the Varrock dig site manager, Seth Minnis, in the main campus building. Don't take it to him at Varrock Museum, though. He likes to keep his work here on site and there at the museum separate. Why is that, then? Because he is very knowledgeable. He is a very knowledgeable man and in charge of this site. I'm sure he knows a lot about your exploits and can judge whether you'd make a good archaeologist or not. But why are you writing the letter? Shouldn't he? He's also a very busy man, so I write the letters and he just stamps them for if he approves. Okay. Oh, I see. I'll ask him if he'll approve me, then bring my stamped letter back here. Thanks. Okay. One thing I forgot to mention is why I'm doing this. I want to do Desert Treasure. Ancient Spellbook is one of my favorite things in the game for as long as I can remember. And I don't know if it'll be different in this, but I want it anyway. Also, one thing I got to figure out too, for later on, is how to get to Barrows. I've done one trip, but I just did the old run to the boat. But that is so slow. It's a challenge because in old school RuneScape, there is a Barrows teleport, but the Barrows teleport is in the Arceus spellbook. The Arceus spellbook is on Kurend. Kurend doesn't exist in this, so I have no idea what to do with Barrows teleport. I haven't seen it in this, like when I went to unlocked things or whatever. Locked and whatnot. I didn't see it in here. Anacronium, Mezcam, down Watchtower, Max Guild, Skeletal Horror. Yeah, so I don't see it in here. So I don't know what the best way to get to Barrows will be. We'll have to figure that out later and hopefully not have to run the entire time. But for now, we're going to do dig site and I want desert treasure. The dig site quest. Hello there. I have been given this letter by an examiner at Varrock dig site. Can you stamp this for me? What have we here? A letter of recommendation indeed. The letter here says your name is G.I. Genesis. Well, G.I. Genesis, you appear to be fit for the task to me, and I like your proactive approach. Run this letter back to the examiner to begin your adventure. Science. Enjoy studies, student. Oh no, I might actually have to remember the fucking answers. Oh no. There you go, good luck. Student, be sure to come back and show me your certificate. I would like to see how you get on. Okay, thank you. How far am I of leveling woodcutting? I don't know, about 60% of the way till 98. Cool. Right, I'm just going over here, right? That's what he said? Go back to the examiner. Sealed letter. Hello again. Here is the stamped letter you asked for. Good. We'll begin the exam. Okay, we'll start with the first exam. Earth Sciences, Level 1 Beginner. Question 1, Earth Sciences Overview. Can you tell me what Earth Sciences is? Oh. Fuck. The study of planets and history of the world. The study of gardening. I'm guessing the combination of archaeology and vegetarianism. Okay, next question. Eligibility. Can you tell me which people are allowed to use this site? You told me before. Professors, students, and workmen only. Next question. Why am I doing a quiz? This is a fucking game. I'm doing an exam. Health and safety. Oh my god, I literally did health and safety shit yesterday. Health and safety. Can you tell me the proper safety points when working on a dig site? Oh god. Rubber chickens to be worn. True. Protective clothing to be worn. Tools kept away from site. And clothing, yeah. Surely. Okay, that covers level 1. Let's see, I did. Dear me, this is a pull. I don't want to talk about it. Please tell me that's scripted and I didn't just get them wrong. None correct, huh? Why don't you use the resources here? There are researchers and you can even ask other students who are also studying for these exams. Surely it's scripted. Surely. Can I just steal the answers from the archaeologists? Oh, no, that's a pickpocket. Researcher. I'm going to pass the Earth Sciences exam. So I can dig at the site north of here. A good goal to work towards, and it should prove rewarding for you. So where are you wait, I'm not quite sure. You could ask the other students. I'm sure I saw a group of them on their way to the site earlier today. Anything else? If you need something identified or are not sure about something, give it to Terry, the archaeological expert. He's standing over there outside the exam room. Yep, I saw him. Can you tell me more about the tools? Sure. Of course, let's see now. Trowels are vital for fine digging work, so you can be careful to not damage or disturb any artifacts. Rock picks are for splitting rocks or scraping away soil. What about specimen jars and brushes? Those are essential for carefully cleaning and storing smaller samples. Where can I get any of those? Or any of these things? Well, we've come into a bit more funding of late, so there should be a stock of them in each in the exam center's tools cupboard. Okay, where's the tools cupboard? That looks like a tools cupboard. We also hand out relevant tools as students complete each level of their science exam. Anything else? Yeah, you said that already. All right, so let's do this, and then I guess we're gonna find the students. Found a trowel. Find a rock pick. Find a specimen jar. Find a specimen brush. Not my first time around a specimen jar. I mean, what? What the fuck? It's Jack! We must abuse him. Okay, now where are the students? Shut up, Ben. Oh. Dorian, student. Is this the boat to Anachronia, whatever it's called? I still haven't been. Make me Mr. Quester. That's what you sound like. Can you help me with Earth Sciences exam at all? I can't do anything unless I find my special cup. Your what? My special cup. I won it for a particularly good find last month. Alright, so if I find it, you'll help me? I sure will. Any ideas where it may be? All I remember is that I was working near the panning area when I lost it. Okay, I'll see what I can do. Maybe the panning guide saw it? I hope I didn't lose it in the water. You definitely lost it in the water. Yes, that's the boat. Okay. Next question. Will you give me $1 million? Panning guide. And a panning tray. Hello, who are you? Hello, I am the panning guide. I teach students how to pan in these waters. They're not permitted to do so until after they've had training, and of course, they must be invited to pan here too. How do I become invited? I'm not supposed to let people pan here unless they have permission. Mind you, I could let you have a go if you're willing to do me a favor. Uh-oh. How naked do I have to get? What's that? Well, to be honest, what I would really like is a nice cup of tea. Oh, for fuck's sake. Tea. Absolutely, I'm parched. If you bring me one of those, I would be more than willing to let you pan here. I usually get some from the main campus building, but I'm busy at the moment. Alright. Why do I feel like they're going to send me to Varrock to go to the tea guy? I should have brought one teleports. Probably should have at least bought Varrock teleports. I think I have to go to Varrock a few times. Okay. It says it's in this room, apparently. Oops. Oh. Convert to hiding. Hold. The chest is locked. You search and find nothing. Well, that's lovely. Maybe this is just the overarching, you must complete the exam section thingy, so I'm going to actually just go to... Ooh, shelf. Surely I can click it for a reason. Surely I can click this one for a reason. I hate this place. Oh, what? No, maybe I aren't. Maybe I aren't. What was that? What was that? Do I hate the place? Search the bush. The fuck? Oh, such a bush. Oh, it's that bush. What is that icon? Can't search any others, so that... I might have just accidentally stumbled onto this. That's cool. Nothing of interest, but that might come in handy later, I guess. I have done this quest before, but I don't remember much about it. I've done this quest a few times. But that was actually convenient, because if that is part of it, I don't remember it. Why did I did go to Varrock, right? Oh, there's a bank chest. Duh! Let me just grab some Varrock tellies. Level 1, yeah, I remember there's like 3 levels or whatever, and I remember we have to go underground at some point. Teleports. I'm just gonna bring Varrock ones. That... Who's watching her? No one. Mind your business. Okay, tea stall. You know, a lot of people... Actually, thinking about it, it's kind of funny. It's like, a lot of people really hate one small favor, right? But realistically, every quest is basically one small favor if you don't have the items in advance. But realistically, everyone who's done this Guideless hates every quest. Follow my logic? A well. Interesting well. Where's the guy? Oh, the panning guy. Powers off a relic. Alright. You read my mind. I could murder a good cuppa right now. If I can have that cup of tea, I'd give you permission to pan. What do you say? Yes, I read your mind. You definitely didn't tell me to go and get it. Lovely. You can't beat a good cuppa. You're free to pan all you want. This game really is British. Alright, search pen. Oh, I got a first try. I'm pretty sure it takes a few tries normally. Why are you snitching? Alright, take the cup. Would you like a cup of tea while I'm here? Look what I found. Excellent, I'm so happy. Let me now help you with your exams. The people eligible to use this site area are all that have passed the appropriate Earth Sciences exam. Okay, so it wasn't stupid. They just didn't let me give the proper answer to make my character stupid. What the fuck? Oh, I can go in. Whoa. Whoa. We're going back up. That was intimidating. Okay, cool. So we got that. Now, do I just talk to another student? I doubt I go to level 2, right? Do I go to level 2? I thought I have to pass this exam and then I go to level 2 again after that. Yeah, level 1. So we talk to another student in the level 1 zone. I think. Hello there. Can you help me with the Earth Sciences exam? Well, maybe I will, maybe I will help if you help me with something. What's that? I've lost my recent good find. What does it look like? Like an animal skull. Well, it's not too helpful. There's lots of those around here. Can you remember where you had it last? It was around here for sure. Maybe one of the workmen picked it up. Okay. Well, it's convenient. There's one right here. You steal a spade. Oh, I have to actually click? What kind of archaic shit is this? I thought we'll pass that life. What is this, old school RuneScape? Hello there. Is this your animal skull? Oh wow, you found it. Yeah, the guy right next to you had it. Thank you so much. I'll be glad to tell you what I know about the exam. The study of Earth Sciences is the study of Earth and its contents and history. That makes more sense than vegetarianism. Okay, where's the other dig site level 1? Or is they not in that section? Is they? Are they? Maybe it is just the level 2 section anyway. Let's just try this, see if that works. Hello there. Can you help me with the Earth Sciences exam at all? I can if you help me. There's no one just willing to help each other for free in this game. How can I do that? I've lost my teddy bear. He was my lucky mascot. You know where you dropped him? Well, I was doing a lot of walking that day. Oh yes, that's right. A few of us were studying that funny-looking relic in the center of campus. Perhaps in a bush. Up the bush. Interesting, because, like, I feel like this is an old quest, but the hints are pretty on the nose, whereas, like, a lot of older quests, they don't tell you shit. But this was 2003. All right, so this might be where they've actually started, like, they must have started improving the quest clarity, I guess you would call it. You find nothing of it. God damn it. Bush. 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 Another bush. Oh my god, there's so many of them. Didn't I see another one up here, or is that just... Oh no. Don't do this to me. How many are there? Alright, I'm just going to search this one again because I don't know if I searched this one twice or not, but I want to be paranoid. Search. Hey, something has been dropped here. You find something. That looks like a teddy bear to me. Time to take it to the necromancers and animate it. I just checked them and the pen was empty. Alright, hello there. Guess what I found? Hey, my lucky mascot. Thanks ever so much. Let me help you with those questions now. The proper health and safety points are proper tools must be... I could have told you that. Lost 4 rabbits in less than 5 minutes. God damn, they're active. I guess you could say they are at it like rabbits. Shut up. Hello. Are you ready for another short exam? Yes, I am. All right, Earth Sciences. Can you tell me what Earth Sciences is? The study of Earth, its contents, and history. Big brain. Eligibility. Can you tell me which people are allowed to use this site? All that have passed the appropriate Earth Sciences exam. Health and safety. Can you tell me the proper safety points when working on a dig site? Proper tools must be used. That concludes the exam for Earth Sciences Level 1. Let's see how you did. You got all the questions correct. Well done. Thank you. Thank you. You have now passed the Earth Sciences Level 1 General Exam. Here is your certificate to prove it. You also get a decent trowel to dig with. I've already got a trowel. What do you mean? You call my trowel shit? It's from your storage. Of course you'll want to get studying for your next exam. Yeah. I'm gonna hang that on my wall. Examine. Used for digging. Used for digging. I feel lied to. No, I'm dropping that one. Actually, I don't know which one it was. I'm gonna assume it's that one. Alright, now do I just go for the second exam? Oh, it actually tells me which students to speak to. I'm going to do this first, just in case. Hi there. I am stuck on a question. Well, have you not been doing any stuff? Rude. Dick. Did I just talk to the same students again? Green top, face mask. Well, this guy had a face mask. Did he have a green top? Pigtails, and brown top with a beard. Okay, yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, green top. Hello there. How's it going? I need more help with my exam. Well, okay, this is what I have learned since I last spoke to you. Correct pick usage. Always handle with care. Strike the rock cleanly on its cleaving point. Oh, I know where the cleaving point is. Everyone should, right? Everyone knows what a cleaving point is, exactly where it is. Katarina, how's it going? I'm stuck on some more exam questions. Okay, I'll tell you my latest notes. Fines handling. Fines must be careful. Bruh. Did you guys know that? When you're an archaeologist, you should handle the fines F. How's it going? There are more exam questions I'm stuck on. Hey, I'll tell you what I've learned. That may help. Correct sample transportation. Samples taken in rough form, kept only in sealed containers. Okay. That was a bit better. So we need to hit the cleaving point, but I know exactly where that is. We must handle carefully and taken in rough form must be in a sealed container. Hi there. I'm ready for the next exam. Okay, this is the next part of Earth Sciences exam, Earth Science Level 2, Intermediate. Sample transportation. Can you tell me how we transport samples? Samples taken in rough form, kept only in sealed containers. Okay, next question. Handling of fines. What is the proper way to handle fines? You know, this is a tricky one. I thought about, calling a friend. Actually, no, the phone was kind of useless. Her answer was pretty terrible. Screw you, Katarina. If I go with 50-50, that won't work either. I'm gonna have to lock in fines must be carefully handled. Okay, next question. Rock pick usage. Can you tell me the proper use for a rock pick? Must be used, no, always handled with care, struck cleanly on its cleaving point. I used to milk cows on a rainy morning, what the fuck? Cleaving point. Okay, yeah, that covers it. Let me add up the total. Of course I did. What can I say? I'm an archaeological genius. You have now passed the Earth Sciences Level 2. Here is your certificate. You also get a nice rock pick. Of course, you want to get studying for your next exam now. Okay. Do I just talk to the same people again? Apparently. This is a lot more straightforward than I remember. I do think these hints are probably a little too strong. I think I tried to disable them, but it disabled something else. I don't think it actually disabled these. I could be wrong though. Hello there. How's it going? There are more exam questions I'm stuck on. Hey, I'll tell you what I've learned. That may help. The proper technique for handling bones is handle bones carefully and keep them away. Cool. Handle things carefully. Again. Who would have guessed? Well, this one was a real brain teaser, but this one's even tougher. Hello there. What, you want more help? Yes. Calm down. Well, it's going to cost you this time. Oh, God damn it. How much? I'll tell you what I would like. A precious stone. I don't find many of them. My favorites are opals. They are beautiful. Just like me. Heat. Sauce. Okay, I'll see what I can do. But I'm not sure where I'd get one. Well, I've seen people get them from panning occasionally. I've seen people get them from the bank. I think I have one in the bank. I actually don't remember where I got it from. I think it might have been while mining you could get those, like, rock things? Where is the... An opal. Hopefully it doesn't need to be cut. Because you can break them. Hello there. Did you bring me the opal? Would an opal look like this by any chance? Wow, great. You've found one. This will look beautiful set in my necklace. Thanks for that. Now I'll tell you what I know. Sample preparations. Samples cleaned and carried only in specimen jars. Not terrible advice. Probably not worth an opal, but not terrible advice. All right, Eduardo. You're the only one who's been solid so far. What do you got for me? How's it going? I need more help with the exam. Well, okay. This is what I've learned since I last spoke to you. Specimen brush use. Brush carefully and slowly using short strokes. Okay, I'll remember that. Thanks for all the help. You're a disappointment, too. I hope all these students fail. Also, I have got nearly 1.3 million arrow shafts. Hello. Hello again. I'm ready for the last exam. Earth Sciences exam. Earth Sciences level 3 advanced. Sample preparation. Can you tell me how we prepare samples? Planed and carried only in the jar. Samples to be spread thickly with... Jesus Christ. Yes. Okay, next question. Level 2. Level 3, question 2. I was up a bit early today, so I'm tired. Specimen brush use. What is the proper way to use a specimen brush? Brush carefully and slowly using short strokes. Yes. Okay, next question. Advanced techniques. Can you describe the technique for handling bones? God damn it. I believe the answer is carefully. Whoa! Can I dig yet? You have now passed the science exam level 3. Here's your certificate and a specimen jar and I've already got them. Why do you keep giving me tools I've already got? You should use your newfound skills to find an artifact on site that will impress Terry. Okay. Hello, Terry. I'm gonna go find something, Terry. Don't you worry. Alright, so I just gotta find something to impress him. Dig level 1. Find some more boots. Perfect. Love it. Oh, leather boots count as range now. I mean, I guess that makes sense. I don't even know if this is where I'm supposed to be digging. Old tooth is interesting, isn't it? Rotten apple. More boots. Ooh. An old vase. A rusty sword. Find nothing. Oh, okay. Well, rude. Might as well fill up my inventory with crap and then see what he likes. Another tooth, another vase. Guessing more boots. No, more broken glass. An opal. Pre-cut. Love to see it. Another rotten apple. I feel like that's just from these guys. More boots. Okay. Does he? Maybe. Unless I'm meant to just go into the underground section now. I don't know. Terry, where are you? There you are. Hi, Terry. Do I have anything interesting? My name is Terry Belando. I am an expert archaeologist. I am employed by Varrock Museum to oversee all finds at this site. Anything you find must be reported to me. Oh, okay. If I find anything of interest, I'll bring it here. Can I help you at all? I have something I need checking out. What do I give him? Rude. Looks like a bird from a mighty being. Pity there are no tooth fairies around. Rude. Rude. Dick. I worked hard for those. Shit's on my dreams. Removes the effect of aggression potions. Huh, interesting. Alright. Let's dump these. Keep my certificate. Dump those. Done. I'm sure all of that will come in completely handy. Alright, let's just try and go down the winch thing. I feel like I have to do level 1 dig, then level 2 dig, then the winch though. Well, maybe not. Old armor. Nothing. Lovely. Old armor. Broken staff. Broken. Don't jug. Holy crap, archaeology makes me want to sleep. Nothing. Lovely. Like, I love history. I don't give a shit about archaeology. I'll leave that to other people. Find some more armor. Oh my god, where is this thing that I gotta find? An uncut opal. Am I trolling? Is there something else I'm meant to do first? I feel like I'm trolling. I feel like there's something that needs to be done first. I'll try this dig spot over here as well. Find some clay. I'm sure I find a lot of clay. Oh, this is level 3. Oh, we'll try it. Because I don't think it's any of this. Alright. Oh, I found something. An iron knife. Oh, we cleaned something else. What did we clean? Just money? Pie dish. I mean, this is more promising. Strange talisman. There it is. Talisman. That's a Zaros talisman. Let's go. I remember that. I think then we can go down the winch and there's like a Zarosian thing. Hello, Terry. Take a look at this talisman. Unusual. This object doesn't appear right. I wonder. Let me check my guide. Could it be? Surely not. From markings on it, it seems to be ceremonial ornament to a god named Zaros. I haven't heard much about him before. That's right, because they tried to destroy all mention of him so that he could never return or anything like that. This is a great discovery. We know very little of the ancient gods that people worshipped. There is some strange writing embossed upon it. It says Zaros will return and wreak his vengeance upon Zamorak the Betrayer. I wonder what it means by that. Some silly superstition, probably. Still, I wonder what this is doing around here. I'll tell you what. Seeing how you were the one to find this, I'll allow you to use the private dig shafts. You obviously have a keen eye. Take this letter and give it to one of the winch operators at the north end of the dig, and they will allow you to use them. Is that meant to be? Is that what archaeologists think is cool? Like calling it the dig? You know, is that like their equivalent of like the crib? I'm showing my age by saying the crib, aren't I? Shut up. All right. The Stormbreaker. Rather than do Troll Stronghold today, maybe we... Oh, there's the picture. Maybe we have a look at Anachronia. Because I don't know if Troll Stronghold is going to get me stuck on anything or not, so I might save that for tomorrow. We can have a look around Anachronia. Here, look, I have this letter of permission to use the winches. The winch operator nods in recognition. You are now free to use the winches. Thank you. Yeah, I think I could fit down there. I may need something to help me get all the way down. Something to get all the way down. Do I need an extra rope? Do you have an extra rope? I'm gonna go grab another rope. It also has another marking on the map over there, so I'll grab 2 ropes, just in case. Rope. That is more than 2 ropes. Use rope on winch. You tie the rope to the bucket. You lower yourself down into the shaft. Why is he down? Search stacks. Alright. Hello! Well, I have a visitor. What are you doing here? I've been invited to research here. Indeed, you must be someone special to be allowed down here. You know where to find... I have things to do. Come on, let me keep you. I have a specimen jar. Why am I asking where a specimen... What? Find a specimen jar. Why would I need to ask him for a specimen jar? I can just go get a specimen jar. I have a specimen jar. I am confused. Is there any markings on the wall or anything? No. Maybe I just go to the other winch, I guess. Let me out. Let me out. That barrel lit up, but I'm pretty sure I hovered over it and nothing happened. Operate winch. Oh, I think I need to make explosive. There's room past these bricks if I get them out the way. Working in these underground areas can help. Oh. Rude. Dutch sack of charcoal. Oh, what is this? A book of chemicals. That's handy to know. Very convenient that it's down here. Volatile chemicals, experimental test notes. How many pages is this? Alright, cool. In order to ease mining process, my colleagues and I have decided we need something stronger than picks to delve under the surface of the dig site. As I already had an intermediate knowledge of herb lore, I experimented with certain chemicals and invented a compound of tremendous power that, if subject to a spark, would literally explode. We used vials of this compound with great effect as it enabled us to reach further than ever before. Here's what I have left of the compounds. What do you mean what I have left? Ammonium nitrate powder, 1 measure of nitroglycerin, 1 measure of ground charcoal, 1 measure of... Unfortunately, the last ingredient was not noted down, but we understand that a certain root grows around these plants that was used to very good effect. Okay, cool. There's the chemical book. Is there anything else that we can pick up here? Sack of charcoal. We have charcoal. Rind. Cool. Ooh, the barrel. Oh, these are just more charcoal. Alright. Lid is sealed tight. I'll find something to lever it on. Alright, that's too fat. There's a chest there. That's kind of inconvenient. Find something to lever it on. Bait is too big. You're very picky, aren't you? Great, it's opened. Oh, cool. I need a container to collect some. It looks and smells quite dangerous. All right, so we need a vial. Oh, we can try the specimen jar. All right, fine. I can just use the book to teleport because there's a thingy there, right? Yep. A vial, maybe 2. I think this is that stuff that you can drop, like, deliberately, and it'll smash and explode or whatever. And deal damage. We do this. You know, I'm actually going to grab 3, because I don't know if I can fuck it up or not. I need to investigate the dig site. Have someone else in the dig site can help. Yeah, we'll go talk to him now. What did it say the first thing needs to be? The first ingredient is ammonium nitrate, then nitroglycerin. Okay. Surely old mate can help us with something. Hello. I move a large pile of rocks. There used to be this chap that worked in the other shaft. He was working on an explosive chemical mixture to be used for clearing blocked areas underground. He left in a hurry one day. Apparently something in the shaft scared him to death, but he didn't say what. Oh. Rumor has it he'd been writing a book on his chemical mixture. I'm not sure what was in it, but he left in such a hurry, he probably left something behind. Okay. In fact, I still have a chest key he gave me. Okay, cool. That's what I needed you for. Okay, yeah, the barrel's just weirdly lit up. Hey, what was that? Hidey hole. I think that's just, if it's like old school, then I'm guessing it's like a clue scroll thing. All right, let's go open this chest, see what we got. Ammonium nitrate. Cool. That was the first thing, right? Huh. Okay. A vial. Stuff is, I better be very careful with it. Jokes. Not actually going to drop it. Alright, chuck that in. Chuck that in. We just chuck the root straight in. Excellent, this looks just right. Oh, cool. Then what? Do I just pour it on it? All over the bricks, okay. This is gonna blow, I better run. Coward. Wow, that was a big explosion. What's that noise I can hear? Sounds like bones moving or something. Hello, Bones. That is what your names are now. Oh, silver. What did I get? Read stone tablet. There's tremble mortals for Zaros shall return. Cool. Cool. And hopefully I can get ancient magics from him during Desert Treasure. Do I talk to Terry? I'm guessing, or the other guy. The head honcho. Terry, okay. Next question is, do I do Troll Stronghold or not? I think I'll do that tomorrow because... Yeah, let's just finish the quest first. Hello, let me in. No, get back in there. Why does he want to identify liquid specifically? I found this hidden cabin beneath. Incredible. There is an altar down there. The place is crawling with skeletons. Yuck. That's all you gotta say is yuck? That's your first instinct? Did my character say that they were, like, animated skeletons? Because otherwise, this is an archaeology place, right? Wouldn't skeletons be something of excitement? This is an amazing discovery. All this while, we were convinced that no other race had lived here. It seemed the followers of Saradomin have tried to cover up evidence of this Zaros altar. This whole city must have been built over it. Thanks for your help. Your sharp eyes have spotted what many have missed. Here, take this gold as your reward. Oh, he gave me a bar. Fuck yeah. Ability to create specimens, access to coda from archaeologists. What the fuck is that? 91, or 91 construction. Okay. Wait, 75 attack, magic, or ranged. Or, why have they got or twice? Is it any of these three, or 91 constitution, or is it attack, mage? Yeah, that wouldn't make sense if it's attack and mage, or ranged, or constitution. Oh, that's a weird way to word it. Alrighty, easy. Now, as I was saying, I actually have another appointment early in the morning. So I'm going to be I'm already tired. We'll go have a look at Anachronia a little bit, and then I'm probably going to jump off, call it a little early. I will be streaming tomorrow still, because the appointment's in the morning, so I can jump on. I'll be back home with plenty of time to spare. So I can do all that, but in the meantime, because I'll be tired, I'll probably just want to do one quest tomorrow, and I'm already tired today, so I don't really want to do more quests or anything. So let's just go have a look at Anachronia a little bit, and then I'll jump off, make it a short stream. Yes, set sail, please.
The dragon told me the voyage would be treacherous, but I've never seen a storm like this one. The sea is primordial.
What the hell?
It is ancient and vast, like a thing from another time. The sky is angry. I can feel it. If not for the Stormbreaker's powerful magical wards, we would be torn apart. From the deck, I hear the island calling to me. Turn back! Turn back! I do not want to be found. I should not be found. Turn back. This must truly be the very end of the world. Cut off from everything. The sort of place I've been seeking all my life. A place of solace. I think the storm is finally breaking. At last, we can catch a glimpse of this barren rock.
Did I just accidentally stumble into something that's going to take a while? Also, who the hell is that lady? Interesting. I mean, this place looks kind of cool. What the fuck is that? What the fuck? That's Palm. No, is it Palmon? What's that Digimon? With the flower on its head. I am kind of curious about this because, like, you know, if you look at Varlamore from old school RuneScape, it is definitely more of the more adventurous content. Like, they've taken lessons they've learned elsewhere and tried new things out. So I'd assume this is like the RuneScape 3 equivalent, where they probably tried some things out. Oh no, don't. Oh wait, I remember someone said something you have to build things. I think Jack or Ben said you had to build things. Build things. I just want to walk. Can I run? Can I just leave? Alright, what do we got? Oh, lovely. Level 95. Off to the good start. Level 82. Okay. And wrong spirit. Rex Matriarch. Interesting. Orphan Dig Site. Slayer Master. Ooh, I wonder what level that Slayer Master is. Ripper Dinosaurs. If I walk. Oh, they're following. What the fuck? That's a footprint. Look at the size of this footprint. It's extremely rare to find something that would make a print this big. Yeah, you're not wrong. Be able to look at everyone. You know what creature it could be? I cannot say for sure. The footprint suggests it could be very similar to a dragon. Why would they assume it's similar to a dragon and not just assume it's a dragon? Why is this crate searchable and nothing else is? Lovely. This is interesting having like people follow. This way, I guess. Yo, turtles. Yeah, this place is kind of pretty. I hope there was something over there. I thought. Why are we following the footprints? I don't know. Oh, investigate bones. Okay, good. As long as it's bones. There's some big ass bones though. Look at this. This looks and smells fresh. That does not look or smell fresh. I don't know what it smells like, but I can tell you it doesn't smell fresh. But all the flesh has been stripped right off. We're gonna have to squeeze past it. Be careful not to slip. Oh, it's void of anything because it's been stripped, not because it's decayed. A little scary. Yeah, this is really pretty. The hell? Oh, we got something there. Oh. Investigate bones. All the bones on the same track as where these footprints are leading. Let us push on. We need to find a safe spot to make camp. Night is upon. Sure. We should ensure we're protected against whatever is with us on this island. Will this be the matriarch thing that I saw? Go. What the? Oh, that looks sick. What is that thing? It looks like a big scary Jadinko. Everyone stand still. Do not move a muscle. Do you think he saw us? If we do not startle it, it may not even see us. It just looked at me. Shut up, you'll get us all killed. It's definitely looking at me. I'm too young to die. It just licked its lips. Shush. Run, every man, woman, and child for himself. Damn, that dude must have that line rehearsed. Why would he... There's no man... Like, there's no children here. Oh, blimey. Oh, no. Do not fucking tell me they're gonna be... Run, you fools. Is he with us? I don't think so. Run. You only tell me twice, I'm pegging it. It's kind of cool. It doesn't feel like a RuneScape thing at all. I have a feeling that Dinosaur can go a lot faster. This is one of the few places that are safe around here. Blimey, I've not had a chance to process the fact that there are other people on this island. I'm so happy to see you. The name is Irwinson. Oh my god. If the call blimey thing and the Irwin part is meant to be Australian, I'm gonna have a fit. This land is littered with new creatures I had never seen before. Be careful when you leave this area. There are new creatures and dangerous plants. I found that using a lot of broken temples and routes to traverse the island quite helpful. We're all gonna die. Thanks for the advice. I'm still amazed I'm not alone on this godforsaken island. Please come chat to me more about how you're even here. You can find me in my lodge just over there. I'm going to explore. If you need me, I won't be far. You're just gonna leave us? With that thing out there? You'll be fine, so will I. Yeah, exactly. Pardon the fuck up. Quit being a bitch. Lodestone. Oh, build. Oh no. We've made it. Finally, a safe haven away from these monsters. Look at this place. Yes, we can work with this. It is strong, defendable, and gives us some high ground. Of course, Mr. Mordort is going to need a base of operations to keep everyone focused on the mission, so we should focus on that first. Are you willing to help me out? You look like you can handle yourself from what I've seen so far. Alright, we're gonna do... I want at least the lodestone. As soon as I set my eyes on you, I knew it would be useful to have you around. Yes, let me explain what you need to do. Look up there. Up there? Look up there. The top of this temple would make the perfect place for us to establish some kind of town hall. Somewhere where we can run this camp and ensure everyone is cared for properly. As you know, just getting here, building the boat, breaking through the storm's wall, navigating past those things, it's all been a trial in itself so far. However, we always knew we were going to need to figure out a more permanent way of surviving. I spotted some resources we could use to build up the base on the way here. There was wood, vines, leaves, stone, hides, and clay. Thankfully, King Rold gifted us a number of workers who will assist us in gathering what we need. To build the town hall, we will need to gather some wood, vines, and stone. I'm in charge of the workers. Talk to me at any time to get them gathering different resources. Oh, I don't gather them. Okay. Remember, we need at least one worker assigned to gather wood, vines, and stone. Whoa! What is this? Is this like a more advanced, like, miscellanea? What's this? Oh, okay. Oh, so that'd be... Is this indicated wood, vines? Stone. I also want one on this. What? 60 per hour. Okay, okay. 120 per hour, 180 per hour. We're gonna go like this so we can get that done as quick as possible. Oh, also requires town hall tier 1. Oh. we probably want to focus on that first then. Alright, let's go that. Let's do that, I guess. Workers are now hard at working exploring the island for resources. What do we do now? We wait. The workers will take time to gather the resources and we'll deliver them back every 10 minutes. Tell you what though, I'll tell you a story to pass the time. Oh, it's going to skip us ahead at least. And that was how I became the youngest accountant in Varrock history. What the fuck? Fascinating story. Have those workers returned yet? Let me check. Oh yes, here they are. Hey, is that not a player? Oh, fuck off, game. You are trolling. Let me check. Oh yes, here they are. And let me count our stocks. Yes, perfect amount to start building the town hall. That's convenient. So what's next? Along with assigning workers, you can talk to me to construct or upgrade a building. Go ahead, let the workers know it's time to build the town hall. Workers, build the town hall. Excellent, we did it. The first signs of civilization on this forsaken place. The town hall is just one of many buildings you can help build. I'm sure there are several people, yourself included, that could do with a safe haven building for them on the island. As you do so, each building will grant you various benefits to make life here a bit easier here on the island. Come visit me if you want to view the perks for constructing and upgrading each building. We're also going to need more space for the workers and resources in the future, so we should ensure we're building sleeping quarters and a storehouse when we have the chance. Doing so will help us gather resources quicker and build up more of the base camp. Ugh. Before you go, one of the workers found this, some compacted resources. If you return them to me, I can add them to our stocks. Let's take a look and see what he gives us. Wood and stone. Please tell me that allows us to build lodestone. I don't think it does. For now, we shall let the workers focus on gathering more resources. Remember to check in regularly to see what we can build. I better head up to the town hall now and prepare for Mr. Mordort's arrival. Wait, what should I do? You're an adventurer, aren't you? How about you explore the island and see what you can discover? You could also talk to the others here in the base camp to see what else you can learn. Okay. Interesting. Oh, good. Cracky boy's fucked off. Thank God. You better not be in this town hall. You better not be in the town hall. Alright, cool. Manage base camp. What is this? Clay. Okay, we need clay so we can get the lodestone. All workers on deck. All workers on deck. 600 per hour, so that's 100 every 10 minutes. So we need 20 minutes. Easy. Archaeological collection. Trade, general store assistant, anti-poisons. Okay, so he's like basically the Paramja one. Mr. Mordor. I guess I should have always expected us to arrive safely with you on this expedition. Another heroic performance by you. What the fuck? We're just gonna skip over the fact that it's just a talking dragon just chilling with us. Thanks. So now now we pause for breath. This is a dangerous place, and it's certainly not what we expected to find. What do you mean? The climate, the animals, the plant life. We are too far north for any of this to be viable. It's almost like it is from a different time period entirely. We can't call it Fossil Island anymore, that is for sure. Oh, is this meant to be Fossil Island from old school, but their version? Because this version's way cooler. What should we call it then? I have an idea. Anachronia, the land out of time. There is much to learn here, and it will take time to understand what is truly going on here. For now, this will serve as a base of operations. We can fortify our position and learn the landscape before we press onwards. Okay. How can I help? Be strong, be prepared, blah, blah. I didn't mean to accidentally hit that second one. The island is full of threats that you could put an end to your life if you drop your guard. Help us build up the base camp and form a defense, ready for whatever comes next. Okay. What are your plans? I wish to ensure all those that travel here are safe. We should fortify this base camp to ensure those in our care are protected. I hope I can rely on your assistance here. After that, we prepare for whatever happens next. What do you mean? There are larger plans at work. We should never lose sight of that. However, this island provides us with a unique opportunity to learn. I strongly recommend you use this time to your own advantage as well. Who knows what treasures are out there waiting to be discovered? Maybe there is even a pile of gold to retire on. Yeah, I need to go for now. I want to actually see what it takes to build the bank as well. 500. Okay. So I'm going to get the lodestone done, then we'll go for the bank chest. Player log. Increase. Here, 2 buildings, storehouse. What's the maximum these can store at the moment? 5,000. Okay. Get more workers. Oh, okay, it requires multiple things. Fair enough. Agility XP is increased on the island by 5%. Okay. Gathering an additional resource. We just now take an extra. Okay, hopefully this big game stuff is like a more interesting Hunter, because holy fuck, I hate Hunter. Player lodge. Remote totem. Access to a totem in the base camp that can be used to charge all other. Oh, okay, whatever. Cool. And there's a material storage. Archaeology. Okay, typical archaeologist stuff. Quest down there. Oh, the Slayer Master. Wait, what the fuck is this? What the fuck are you? What are you? Oh, you're the Slayer Master. Okay. Slayer. What level do I need for you? Masters. Xanaris, Shiloh, Ancient Cavern. 120 combat and 90 slap. Fuck. Alright, we ain't using you, are we? Guard. Oh. Teleport Orphan teleportation device. God damn it. Alright, Hunter's Mark Shop. I feel like I'm going to need way higher level to actually do Hunter here. This one. 75, 94, 90. Oh my. Yeah, I ain't doing shit here for a while. Oh, Hunter training. Never mind. Maybe I am. Raksha, the Shadow Colossus. Ooh, a heist, huh? Is that the one that I have access to? I've got access to one heist, I think. Other? Sports adventure. No. Is it not in here? Everything. Where I had one heist unlocked. Heist. Vault of Herodotus. I don't know where the fuck that is. Do I have another one up here anywhere? I don't think so. Vault of Herodotus. Probably Herodotus, but whatever. Cool, I guess. What are these guys? Eliza, random player. Okay. I think I'm going to jump off today. Like I said, I'm pretty tired and I've got to get up early in the morning as well. Tomorrow, I'll probably do Troll Stronghold. I'm going to just AFK here until I have the supplies to build the lodestone. I'm going to go do some other stuff while I wait. And then once I have the lodestone, I'll leave the island and just probably do more farming, herb lore, and probably just more combat. Maybe some more thieving. I'm running low on money. But nothing particularly interesting or exciting. I won't continue on anything here yet. We'll save that for another stream. But for now, anyway, everyone, have fun. Bye.